Welcome, champions, to the Idle Champions of the Forgotten Realms weekly live stream. My name is Dylan Wilkes, and I'm coming to you live from the green-coated streaming closet here at Codename Entertainment in beautiful Victoria, British Columbia, Canada. Before we begin, I have a lot of stuff to go over for today. So right off the top, I'd like to thank the Dungeons & Dragons team for hosting us here at twitch.tv/D&D and for everything they do to support and build both the D&D brand and the community, which is a lot of work, and they do a killer job of it. So huge thanks to all of those folks. And you may have noticed looking around that things are a little bit different. Yes, I'm wearing a hat. But also, as you can see, we've been updating our overlay. It's a little bit more different, even with guests and when viewing the game. It was just time to make a change. We're a year in now. Actually, on that note, next week's stream, October 11th, will mark our full 1-year anniversary of streaming Idle Champions on the D&D Twitch. Our first show was on October 12th, 2017, and some of you may remember me talking with our CEO, Eric, for about an hour about D&D. Luckily, we've gotten a little bit better since then and a little bit more technically adept. But anyways, in celebration of a year on the D&D Twitch, next week's stream, we will be digging deep into our bags of holding for an array of awesome prizes. T-shirts, DLC codes, and other prizes from our friends, including a grand prize of a D&D Beyond Legendary Bundle. For those who may not know, the Legendary Bundle includes every digital content product available for D&D Beyond. So if you're a Dungeon Master, you can invite players to your campaign and they can use all of the resources available to make their characters. It's really awesome as a DM if one person in your player group has that. So that will be a prize as part of next week's stream on October 11th, which will be our streamiversary, among other prizes. So yeah, I use that bundle a lot for when I DM. It's awesome. I highly recommend it. Anyway, so what about today's agenda? Well, before I switch over and before I introduce our amazing guest, I want to mention that we have a bug that rolled out with yesterday's build that has since been fixed, and if you haven't updated the game in the last hour or two, you should, because as soon as you enter the streaming code that I'm about to show you, your game will crash if you have that bug. You'll still get the chest, but the game will crash. So update your game and it won't. Yeah, without further ado, I would like to introduce our extra special guest here to talk about all things Farida. Allow me to introduce Aaron M. Evans, author of the Brimstone Angels Saga. Welcome, Aaron.
Hi, guys. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we are stoked to have you. I just realized that in the background I haven't been looking at my game and my characters are dying, so I should probably fix that before doing anything else. And I'll add Farida to the party because
You say you don't have Farida, that's your problem.
well, not anymore.
Watch it get worse.
Yeah, well, we're so merciless with this event. They tuned the difficulty way up. I'm just gonna put familiars on leveling all these characters so that I can pay less attention to the game and more attention to our conversation, because I personally like to be able to pay attention to people when they're talking to me. Yeah. So usually most of the guests on the show are streamers and people who live play D&D for audiences. But I think that the question that I asked them first probably is just as applicable to you as it is to any of them, in that, you know, where does Farida come from for you? Like, how much of Aaron M. Evans is in Farida or vice versa?
I would say the thing about writing a novel, like, I feel like all of my characters are sort of a slice of me, which, if you've read the book, sounds kind of scary because there's some where you don't want to meet them in the street. But I think that you got to put yourself into that position, into that role. And there's some ways that Farida and I are very alike. Like, she's very anxious. She really wants to help people. She's definitely the big sister. And if you asked my two sisters, I am probably way too up in their business. I'm better now. You know, she cares a lot about her friends and her family, and she wants to do the right thing. I think she's a lot more serious than I am.
Okay.
And that's where I think, you know, she has a twin sister who's obviously not in the game, but is in the books. And they sort of tend to do that splitting thing where Farida's the serious one and Havilar's the one that can kind of be goofy or snarky or you know, do things because they sound like fun.
Have a book that says how to kiss better or whatever it is, right?
Yeah, I love that so much. In the books, she and her friend, who's eventually, you know, her special man friend, they like to read chapbooks, which are kind of like trashy novels in the realms.
Yeah.
In between trashy novels and comics, right? And so they read these together, and so that's kind of like an important part of their friendship and later relationship. So that was, you know, we were trying to think of things for Farida to have, and they wanted something fun. I'm like, it's too bad you're not doing Havilar, because Havilar would have these chapbooks, but Havilar would totally be like, I don't have any room, take these, put them in your bag. Read this one, it's so good. Hey, you know what? You might want this. So when I was trying to think of ideas, though, I was talking to my former editor, Susan J. Morris, who was the editor for Brimstone Angels and came back for the last couple books. So she did Ashes of the Tyrant and The Devil You Know and most of Fire in the Blood. And so I was like, what would you do? And she's like, chapbooks. And she's like, she would totally do this. She put this, she's like, oh, and the epic tier one, that should be just how to kiss. And it should be full of bookmarks and like, you need to read this part, I'm pretty sure. Because, you know, even though Sarita's kind of the big sister, like where she lags Havilar is definitely like, let me tell you how to fix your life.
That sounds like a very sibling thing to say too. So I guess it's interesting because I don't mind outing myself as somebody who didn't read Forgotten Realms novels. I read a ridiculous number of Dragonlance novels. That was my my vice, I guess.
Yeah.
So I'm most of my knowledge around D&D lore is more recent, just from reading 5e books and, well, actually 3.5 books and some AD&D books. And in retrospect, I've probably read quite a few things, but it's just weird where you pick stuff up from and where you get the knowledge from. And I got to know how somebody as an author, how do you dive into that? Because there's decades of published history and seemingly a very daunting amount of stuff you need to know.
In the scheme of Forgotten Realms, I came very, very late. I very much jumped in at the end. So some of it was, when I started, I worked as an editor for their novels line. I worked on Eberron primarily, but I did a Forgotten Realms. Yeah.
Love that setting. Love it.
It was one of those things where, you know, when they would have calls and they would ask for people to write, I was always a little bit disappointed because I loved Eberron and I would have loved to write Eberron novels, but I was editing them, so I couldn't write them and then edit myself. That's a terrible plan.
Yeah.
So I was like, I don't get to do that. But then I got the opportunity to write Forgotten Realms novels and I fell in love. You know, it's so big. There's so much space to find a place to play. It's been around for so long, so you do end up with things where it's like, this is true, but also this is true, and it can't be true. So you find the story that fits here and kind of merges them and melts them, and it lets you play a lot with the reliable narrator aspect. When I come in to write it, I definitely try not to fall into the pit of like, I'm going to learn all the things about the realms, because you can't. And so, you know, for some books that's easier than others. Lesser Evils takes place in the mountains in the north. Like, we're basically, if anything happens, it's you walked out there and you met some orcs. There isn't a whole lot of lore there, and there was space to kind of carve out my own thing. It did involve, I had to go back and read the Netherworld box set and kind of work that in. But then for something like Fire in the Blood, takes place in Cormyr, and it's very immersed in the lore, but it's also a very personal story. So figuring out like when it's right to kind of acknowledge, you know, the kings and the queens that go back forever and ever, or this lore legend, or what's the name of this room, and when you let it go and let it sit to the side. Because you're telling a story about characters first and foremost. For stuff like that, it's really helpful to be friends with people who already know this stuff. Like, had a lot of emails, like a lot.
Yeah.
Through the Cormier book, there's this guy, Brian Cortijo, who has always been a huge Cormier fan and has written some articles and some things for I think he might have done some DM Guild stuff, but I'm not positive if he's put it out there. But things for Cormier that have all that detail. I'm giving him a look at my drafts and saying, okay, are all these things happening? Like, for example, I named
Nope.
Building
Oh, I think we're only getting part of that.
Any business. So that's interesting.
I think we might be losing you. Oh, that's too bad. Hold on a second. Let me see if I can't do something about this. Looks like your signal is weakening.
Okay, something, I don't know what glitched, but is it done?
It looks like it might be. I don't know. Are you on Wi-Fi?
I am on Wi-Fi.
Okay. Well, then that might happen again. It might not. So,
sorry, guys.
It's okay. It happens. We're using we use one shared internet connection for our whole office. So, right before the stream starts, I'm usually all right. Turn off your YouTube, so that we can do this. Otherwise, it'll die. But yeah. So I only caught a bit of that.
Well,
yeah.
Yeah, I was just saying working in Cormier involves a lot of lore, and so being able to go to someone to look at, to have someone say, like I had in Fire in the Blood, there was a point where I had to name a bunch of taverns, and I had one after a queen, after like some historical queen, is a little like lore nod, and Brian was reading it, and he said, you can't do that. It's illegal in Cormier to imply that the throne approves of any business venture, so you can't use their name. And it's one of those things where it's like most people aren't going to notice. It kind of on certain levels, like, does this matter? But I think that when you're working in a shared world, as much as you can like respect and honor the things that are already there.
Yeah.
And there's ways. I think there's always a way to kind of like to do that and still have what you want. Like that wasn't important to have that tavern have that queen's name in it. It was just me trying to make a nod. And so if I name it something that had to, it was like the sweet nymph or something.
Yeah.
Which I think went with another story. But there's a way to do that without kind of tromping all over, what someone else put their heart and soul into,
Yeah. How does one start to establish those connections? Because at some point you didn't know anybody who worked on those things, presumably.
I mean, I kind of cheated in that I came in from working on the inside, so I had access to the library.
True. Okay, yeah.
And then, you get to send things to...
You had a lore apprenticeship by working through that.
Yeah. So where you start, I think, there's a lot of fan resources out there. If you really want to like do stuff that's sort of like canon tight, there's a wiki for FR, and you can a lot of people who really love this stuff, like you can go to them and say, hey, I saw you wrote a lot of articles about this thing, and there was that was another thing for Cormier. There was a guy who basically combed through everything and wrote down what all the names of all the rooms are. And I was like, I need a room that's approximately here in the castle, and I was going to call it this. Is that okay, or is that room already there? And he was happy to answer, right? That's kind of part of the nice thing about Sherbrooke is like you're part of community.
That makes sense. I always put the same couple familiars in the same spots because I'm a little bit OCD, but also just pairing Evelyn and Strix up with their familiars. Just, I don't know. I feel like I have to.
Right.
Anyways, that was a little bit of an OCD distraction.
That's okay.
The thing that I find the most fascinating about learning lore, because lore is what always pulls me into any game, movie, TV show, whatever, like that people thought about the universe that it's in, that they care about the universe that it's in, and that it follows a similar set of shared history and rules and things that make sense, and you always go back to it. So that when something happens, you're like, oh, that's awesome because of whatever. Mm-hmm. With Forgotten Realms, I remember just the first time I really started to think about it, I'm like, oh god, these books have been out forever. I'm on like my 30th Dragonlance book, but I look at that, I'm like, oh, there's tons of those. Like, I can't get into that. There's way too many, that kind of thing. And then now it's like, now that I'm a little older, and they still make them. It's like there's there are a lot of books. I don't think I'm going to start that series. I don't have time anymore as
No,
an
see,
adult
man,
to start on 50
they're
novels.
all about characters, though.
Yeah.
So you pick a character you're interested in, and you go from there. And
Yeah.
sometimes you might read, like maybe you read Brimstone Angels, and you're like, man, I like tieflings. What other series have tieflings in them? Well, there's Erebus Kale has a tiefling. Well, he's kind of Cambion, but he goes as a tiefling. You know, Venom in Her Veins is a standalone book with a tiefling psionicist.
Yeah.
And I'm blanking on other ones. But, you know, or you go, I like this demon stuff, like where to get more demons. Or, yeah, you know, and again, like it's a community. There's lots of places where if you go and you say, hey, I like this kind of books, or like, I like Dragonlance. I want a tight core of adventurers who are trying to do good. What's the series for that?
Yeah.
That's what I love about the realms is that you can, like, I think from a distance it's overwhelming and you think I can't crack this, it's too big. But when you find the inroad, and the inroad can be anything, like I like mystery novels. There's mystery novels set in the realms, right? I like kind of grim dark stuff, right? Yeah. There's stuff that's kind of grim dark. You want like hopeful stuff. There's stuff that's like pure high fantasy hopefulness. Yeah. Big like epics, sure. Tiny little personal stories, sure. And it is a little hard because you need someone to tell you which way to get in, but yeah. They're all out there. Okay. I will say mine has a very tight adventuring party trying to do good. Just saying.
I have a bunch of questions here gathering from fans of yours and other viewers that are regularly on our stream. The first one is from Axis of Anarchy, who is one of our moderators, but also you may know the name from the Geek and Sundry Twitch and other places. Aaron is a huge reason why I got into 5th edition on release, so lots of love. That book tour still remains as one of my favorite memories, so thank you for being a part of that.
Yay!
And then Prater Bengus says, T Capitana Aaron.
What?
I think it's because I posted something about how I would be drinking tea while talking to you on social, so it's probably referencing that. And then
there's a GIF for Farida where she's drinking tea.
Yeah, I posted that, and then that's what's in here.
There you go.
And then Gerg the Gamer says, hi Aaron, thanks for joining the stream today. Question: I prefer physical books, but the only copy of the first book in the Brimstone Angels is unavailable anywhere. Any plans for a re-release or a secret place to get a copy?
That is a question for Wizards of the Coast, because I don't do distribution. The first book we put out of print. It seems like it was a little early because I'm answering this question literally every other day. Mm-hmm. You're not alone. Libraries are good. The audiobook is also available, and the reader for the audiobook is Dina Perlman is very good, I hear. I can't listen to her read my book because it makes me weirdly embarrassed. I blush. I don't get it.
You don't like self-criticize your writing, or is it just because somebody else is saying it?
Here's a funny story. When I first wrote The Godcatcher, which was my first book in the realms, I went to the bookstore with my family to go see it in person. And when I saw it, I just had this wave of shame. Like I left my dirty laundry sitting on the shelf and I had to hide it. And it was the weirdest thing because you think I've made it, I've arrived, I've written something published. But I was just like, oh God, no, people are going to read it. And I've gotten over that. Now I'm excited to share it. It doesn't have that same thing. But for some reason, the audiobook, when they're like, oh, listen to the sample. And I played it and it was like, stop, nope, that's weird, I can't, But she's a fabulous reader, and I've heard nothing but good things from people who actually sit down and listen to it. And there are a lot of people who will say this is what got me into the series was Dina. So that's another choice, another option. And then use bookstores. If you find them, if you find one, you should buy it and then sell it to somebody on the internet.
Yeah, no doubt.
Be kind, but
we have some absurdly good used bookstores here in Victoria too. Just awesome.
And, if you really want one, like I said, the people to talk to are Wizards, because that's their product, that's their thing, and I think they want people to be happy. So maybe they don't know you need it.
Let's see. Captain Boredom says, not a question for Aaron, just wanted to say I started reading the first book on Tuesday and I love it. I'm trying desperately to not read the whole thing in one sitting.
I think that's good. I don't know. It's a nice feeling when someone says, I stayed up for 2 nights straight reading your giant novel. But at the same time, you're like, okay, but I spent a year on that. You could slow it down. Just a little. Appreciate all the little references and tricks and stuff.
Yeah, but when you get a book that like really clicks for you, that's what you do, right? Like you take it to bed, you take it to the bathroom, you're done that book, you devour it. So sometimes it happens.
I do think it's a nice feeling, and I write for the realms. I write very big books. Like this is The Adversary in hardcover. It's not my biggest book, and it's still pretty big. And in fact, Fire in the Blood is, I think, the second longest realms book ever published, and the longest one is the one that's the history of the elves, so it kind of deserves it. So when people were coming to me like, I read this in 2 days, it's like, did you sleep? Because you should sleep,
they didn't. Yeah, no, they poured a pound of sugar in their tea, and they drank it and read for 40 hours. Chester 17 wants to know if it's difficult to come up with new swear words for fantasy languages.
For people who haven't read the Brimstone Angel series, there is a lot of draconic swearing in it because the sort of style rules for Forgotten Realms, when I was writing at least, were that you couldn't swear, and then they loosened it up and you could say shit, but you couldn't drop an F-bomb. And Farida and her sister and her father are bounty hunters, and their father is like a former soldier, and I just don't believe in bounty hunters that don't curse.
No, that's
So they swear in Draconic. Hey, look, Farida gets an upgrade.
Which one should I pick? Do I want the blessing or the luck? So the luck makes it so that her hellish rebuke impacts more champions, so she's protecting people with it, and then the blessing just makes
Farida's choice.
Makes her hit more.
She'd want to spread the love.
The luck? All right, luck it is.
Yeah. So I don't think it's too hard because it's the kind of thing I like doing. I like doing a little bit of language invention. I'm kind of a linguistic magpie. I like learning new languages up to a certain point. I can't speak any of them, but I can tell you fascinating things about nuclear clauses in Nahuatl. And so making up swear words for Draconic was fun because also with the Dragonborn, because mostly because I loved them so much and I was very loud about it, and the D&D team were kind of like, you just go make up stuff, you're fine, go make up whatever. So I made up a lot of Dragonborn culture, and so if you're interested in Dragonborn, you should check out Ashes of the Tyrant and The Devil You Know It, because they take place in Time-lapse. But coming up with sort of how they swear and why they swear and what these words mean in the context of the culture, I think that's a blast. I love doing that sort of thing. They are not the most pronounceable swear words, so if you were trying to drop a karshoji at your gaming table, I'm sorry. Also, Dina, I'm real sorry, because you have to say all of those. But I think it's fun. And it's a nice way around, wanting to make sure that it's, appropriate for a certain audience.
Yeah, it's actually on that note, we just, as you were saying that, somebody asked the question, how does it feel to be a major canonical creator of Dragonborn culture and language?
I think it's great. And it makes me so happy when people appreciate that and are happy to see it and apply it to their games and their characters. Because that is one thing I love about fantasy. There's a lot of things to love about fantasy, but I really like making new cultures and creating something that feels textured and alive, Yeah. And I was really fortunate that the thing I grabbed was new, and people, had ideas about it, but they weren't quite sure how to put it all together. And there was, I think in 4th edition too, there was a lot of emphasis on leaving space for people to make things up, but then it sort of came around to but people want that texture too. So I had room to go a little bonkers.
Cool. We have a lot of praise here, actually.
Aww.
Not that that's a surprise, but Autocrat says, I don't have a question. I just wanted to say that Erin Evans is delightful, and I hope she gets to write more Forgotten Realms novels.
That would be awesome.
Witch Monk says, I heart you. Daytona 96 HP. The God Catcher got me hooked on your books. And
I love the Godcatcher.
The one hypnotic. I just want to say that in addition to being a great writer, Erin is also a fantastic DM. I got to play in her game at Gamehole Con last year, and it was one of my favorite games ever.
Oh, who? I want to know who they played.
The one hypnotic. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I will wait and see if.
Well, here, I'll tell you what that game is because I think it's a fabulous story. I went to Gamehole Con and they said, "Okay, you need to run a game," and I said, "I've never run a game before," and they said, "What?" Because everybody's so surprised. I love this world building stuff. I love fiction, but I didn't get. Nobody ever showed me D&D when I was a kid, and it bothers me to this day that I had guy friends who were playing it and never went, "Hey, you know who would like this? The chick drawing dragons and making up fantasy stories." Yeah.
In retrospect, seems obvious.
Right? Like, ask people. But so I had never run a game before, and I was trying to think of something that would be fun, it would be different. And I was like, okay, I really have to do Dragonborn, I feel like, because that's something I've really put my mark on. And so what I came up with was this game where you are a teenage Dragonborn and you are going into the city of Jared Cathendi for Ash Day because you are old enough that you need to be making a marriage contract, which is called a call contract. And so you need to like find someone you want this deal with. And so there's this big celebration, there's this big festival, there's all these teenage Dragonborn, and I had this big chart, and you had to flirt with them. And they were all different, they all liked different things, and you got little heart points. And you lost them if you kind of turned them off. And then in the middle of it, you find a dead body. And you have to figure out what is up, why these people are getting murdered. And it gets weird, and there are gods involved, and I've run it twice. Once as practice for my most of my writing group and some of my gaming group, and then once for Gamehole Con. And I love the fact that they both came to they solved it in different ways.
Yeah.
They, you know, and then at the end, I really loved that the second group was like, who did our characters end up with in the first group? And when I told the first group what they said, they were like, okay, but seriously, who did they end up with? And it was fun because I think, you know, sometimes people are like, oh, adventure fantasy can't have romance. Romance is for chicks. So it's like, okay, well, adventure fantasy is for chicks too. But I think that romance level, it kind of lightens it. It makes it kind of fun. And it kind of helps, it makes you invest in your character even more, right? Like,
yeah.
It was a blast. They were a great group.
The one hypnotic answered, they say that they've forgotten her name, but they played a token human who spent the entire game trying to get their Dragonborn friends to kiss.
Yes! I think he ended up being chosen at the end of it. That was great. Yeah, there were two characters that were sort of like wing people. To kind of
wing people characters.
Because if you didn't really want to pretend flirt with me pretending to be Dragonborn teenagers, then I didn't want you to have to. So.
That reminds me of a story that Satine told us recently when she visited about a game that she DM'd, where it was just something that never in a million years would have been something that would have crossed my mind as a DM to come forward with. So that's very cool. We have more here. Let's see. Alpaca Israel wants to know if we've talked about more Farida books at all, which we haven't. I don't know if you have anything that you can talk about even remotely related to that.
No, you know, they put the novels on hiatus. There is a deal to publish a new Dritz trilogy, and I think it's just a question of, is it something people want? And so I'm glad to hear you want that. It's not my call immediately. Like, obviously, I have to be down for it too. You can't. I mean, I guess you could just hire someone else to do it. I don't know the rights, but
yeah.
But again, like, that's one of those things. It's like, you want more novels, then the people to talk to are wizards.
Yeah. Oregon Pink Rose wants to know, do you have input into the pronunciation from the reader? So I guess speaking to the people who do the readings of your books. Yeah.
Yeah. They with the audiobooks, they would come and say, okay, tell me all the words that are in here that you don't know. And I think there was at least once where they had someone comb through and say, here are all the words we don't have pronunciations for. There's a big old master list. Yeah. So I'm very sorry, those of you who say Farida. That's not canonical. You can keep doing it. No one's going to stop you. But she's Farida. Like fajita.
Like fajita.
long as you pronounce Farida right?
Yeah. That's funny because one of our co-founders and design leads, Justin, has been deliberately saying Faraday for the last couple of weeks to make the rest of us make more mistakes when we're talking about it, because that's how he rolls.
That's funny.
So I'm sure he will feel vindicated that you're allowed to say it both ways.
It's one of those things, right? Like your experience of the book is its own thing, and it's okay. Like you want to pronounce it your own way, but there is a canonical way to say it. There's a lot of those. Like, is it Mistra or is it Mistra? Is it Drow or is it Drow? It's Drow.
Yeah. I don't know. If I've heard Chris Perkins say it, I assume that's the correct way. Let's see. We have a few things here from Feora. Aaron, I appreciate all the times you answered my questions about your books. I recently became obsessed with the Brimstone Angel saga in the past 2 months, and is now my favorite book series. Thank you for such wonderful characters and books, and also that they have totally been using draconic curses at their game table.
Awesome.
Let's see, what do we have here? Canuck Monkey.
I'm curious 13. About the draconic cursing on my website /lush, which I do not update enough anymore. I have like a glossary of draconic words, which includes all cursing, and then I have some like culture notes if you really want to play it, like get into playing a dragonborn.
Just a second, I'm going to try and look these up at the same time. Where is it? All right, I'll have to search. Okay, I'll do that on the next question. Let's see. Canuck Monkey 13 wants to know if we can make this stream about turning it into a session of Aaron sharing weird tidbits about various languages, because that would be fun.
I'll try to think if I can think of another good one.
Yeah.
So eventually someone's going to ask, what are you writing now? And so I'll just answer that right now. Traditional publishing is a lot slower than tie-in publishing. So I finished a novel, a really big epic fantasy family saga. And then the fact is I just have to go through the find an agent stage, and then they go through the find an editor stage, and then we go through the pre-pub, and it's just gonna take a little while. Yeah. But I wrote a book, this epic fantasy family saga that's done. I'm working on a different book now, but the fantasy saga, the family saga one, the core culture is kind of I like to take real world cultures and then take sort of like braid pieces of them together so that you have kind of core concepts and you have technologies, and you sort of say, well, what if this was here? And so I used pre-Columbian Aztec and as much ancient Finland as possible, because there's sort of a gap in the archaeological context there. But so the language is sort of, if you took Nahuatl, but you spelled it like you were Finnish. And I think that's a really fun way to kind of come up with a language, because you know we're not all Professor Tolkien. We can't do it from thumbs up. But you know, if you need someone to talk and you need a reason to, if you really need a word here that's not translatable, it's a fun way to do it. And so Nahuatl does have this concept of sort of a nuclear clause. So like the important part of the sentence is at the beginning, and then you add on to it. And then Finnish has this thing, and I might forget some bits of this because it's been a while, and again I'm onto a new book and new language mashups, and this other book sells and I have to write a sequel. I'm gonna have to do it all over. But Finnish has this like vowel construction order that's really interesting. Yeah, the new one has is more like Waterdeep if it was an empire, in that there is just a huge melting pot, and so it's harder to pick one thing out and say this one's like this, because there are so many and they're kind of all mashed together over the centuries. Okay, but it's fun.
Dread Gazebo would like to know, Aaron, as a writer, do you have any rituals or specific conditions that hold on a second. Erica was trying to add something to it while I was reading that. Do you have any rituals or specific conditions that need to be met to sit down and write, aside from peace and quiet?
I try not to. I have 2 small children, and so sometimes it's like, you get this time to work, and so you take it or you lose it. Yeah. So I have done things in the past to sort of maximize that switchover. For my last book, I got some scented lotion and I'd put it on before I worked every time. And so that smell would sort of like put me into that mindset. Yeah. Sometimes I do like writing with a cup of coffee, but I can only handle so much coffee. So if I miss my opportunity, if I drink my coffee before writing, I have to work around that. Yeah. Music is good. Getting a good playlist is hard sometimes, especially when you're starting and you don't know what the book is. But once you have those sounds sort of associated with it, it can be really nice. And I think that's the most important thing. Like if you're having trouble clicking into the space where you get stuff done, then the best thing you can do is create sort of like triggers that put you into that space. If there's a particular place or a particular sound or a particular smell that puts you there, then that's good. And I've gotten to a point where it's not too hard these days. The biggest thing is there's software out there to make the internet go away while you're working. That's handy. Yeah. And then the other thing I really love is there's a program called Write or Die where you start typing and you have to keep typing or bad things will happen. I set it so that if I stop typing, it starts deleting my words. So when you're in that place where you're like, I don't know, tap, 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 and you're not actually getting anything done, this puts you where like you're just going to write some garbage and it's okay. It can be garbage. That's what revisions are for. Because I think sometimes you have to trick your brain into remembering like, this isn't permanent. You have not etched it in stone. You're going to rewrite it. Don't get obsessed. Just put some words down and then fix them.
Yeah. Okay. It's funny because that covers a few of the other questions we were getting a few there about writing. Like, how do you deal with writer's block? Or how do you... okay. Sarian the Great wants to know, if you were to play a game of D&D in any of your books, which would it be and why?
If I were to play it like set in the
presumably, yeah, if you're playing a game of D&D that was set in one of your books.
Oh man. Lesser Evils takes place in a sort of library was made by a Netherese arcanist, but it's kind of a trap. And I have often thought that would be a fun D&D setting because it's got traps, it's got monsters, it's got, other people trying to get there before you, and you have to make some big decisions about what's going to happen to stuff. I don't want to give away too much of the plot, but it's, I think it would be a cool setting. I love Jared Thymar, the Dragonborn city. And so I would totally play a game set in Jared Thymar, which is where Ashes of the Tyrant and parts of Devil You Know take place. Mm-hmm. That I don't know, but again, like I got to sort of settle in and make it beautiful and wonderful, and it makes me happy.
Hawker and Co. wants to know what sacrifice to Asmodeus was necessary to break into publishing.
The story of how I started writing for Forgotten Realms is totally useless to everybody else, pretty much. It's write a lot, practice a lot, read a lot, and then get really lucky. My mother will tell you I've been writing since I was 3, but that sort of doesn't count. But I've been like writing books since I was 12, and like finishing books from like 15. So I've been like that's what I did instead of playing D&D, I guess. Or having a really solid teenage social life. And then, I read everything, just read romance novels, read mysteries, read Westerns, read true crime, whatever you can get your hands on, read it, break it down. Why does this work? What are they doing here that's different? You learn a lot of things about structure and headspace and, how do you pull something off that should be obvious from the beginning and make it a pleasant surprise. When I moved to Seattle, I got an internship, which is a little silly because I had already graduated, but it was with a small press. So it was sort of we want you to work here for experience. And I was fortunate that I could do that. I could have my other job and do that. So I worked for a small press. I started to learn about publishing. And then I couldn't take my day job anymore, and an opening was at Wizards, and I said, whatever, I'm going to try. I got hired there. I was an editor for the novels department. And then we kind of had we're all working on things. Why don't we start, maybe we'll start a writing group. So some of us traded stuff. The writing group didn't happen, but the Forgotten Realms editor Susan Morris, came to me one day and she said, okay, I liked your book and I have this open call, or this limited call rather, for Ed Greenwood Presents novel. And a limited call works where you say, okay, here's a bunch of authors who could write this book. Tell me what you guys, here, you write down what the story would be and you give me a sample chapter and then we'll look at them and we'll pick the best ones. But if you've got 4 slots, you don't want to just pick, ask 4 authors to try out, because if one of them stinks or one of them doesn't quite get the idea or one of them says, you know what, I'm too busy, you're out of luck. So you try to have more people than you need. And so she said, hey, do you want to try out for this? Because I need someone for this spot. And that was my pitch for The Godcatcher. And she and Ed Greenwood really loved it. And because I worked there, there were a lot of hoops to jump through, because they don't want you to just be like, I know this person and they're nice, so they will get to write a book. So she had to actually then find more people to say like, okay, you really tried. And she's like, these are not as good as this one. Let me get her to write this one. So that was, part of it was being in the right place at the right time, knowing the right person. But then, the other half of it is like really working on your craft. So when that comes up, because you can't control that part, right? But when that opportunity comes up, having that is really handy.
No doubt. It's funny how much just timing and luck plays into it. I mean, there's an element where I had a friend of mine do a speech about luck at one point, and he was talking about how the more you work towards something and the more effort you put into it, the more lucky you happen to get in relation to that as well. Because you were working at Wizards and you had spent a lot of time reading, a lot of time writing, you'd honed your craft. You had what you needed when the opportunity presented itself to succeed there. But that's cool. That's really cool. Somebody wants to know what's on the Post-its on the wall behind you.
So this is my whiteboard. I actually share it with my husband, who's a software developer. But like, this is his part and this is mine. So this is a breakdown of the book that I am working on right now, which is a fantasy murder mystery. Oh. So the red ones are sort of like the big things, like the murder happens, clues, incorrect guess, the sort of breakdown of a traditional mystery structure.
Yeah.
The blue ones are sort of like important events for the characters and the story as it goes. And then the smaller ones are sort of like important details that come out, so that I can kind of look at the whole big picture. It actually has to be revamped because I kind of changed my notes. It's interesting because mystery novels have a very set structure. Traditional mystery structure has a very set structure.
Yeah.
That isn't entirely with fantasy, because fantasy nowadays is very like, I want to hit the ground running. I want to know the stakes right up, and I want to, be able to kind of like be settled so I can start grabbing all these details and integrating them. Whereas a mystery, there's usually a setup period before
anything happens. Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, and so I gave a partial to a friend, and she's like, I think you gotta back that murder up, because for a fantasy novel, it takes way too long for the big thing to start happening.
Yeah.
But it's working now, so.
Cool. Low wisdom check. Czech as in Czechoslovakian, by the way, not Czech as in low wisdom Czech. Erin, how did you get into D&D?
I worked at Wizards. Like I said, nobody told me how fun it was. I had played one game with some of my husband's coworkers who were like, oh, let's play it like we all played. Let's play like a nostalgia game. Yeah. So they let me make a neutral evil sorceress. I don't know. That, like, in retrospect, was not probably the best place to start, but she was fun. I had a ridiculous charisma, so I talked people into doing things very easily. And I think we only played once or twice. That game, I will say, so my husband is definitely a geek, but he is not the same kind of geek. So he also has never played D&D, and he wants to play it like kind of like a sandbox game in a different way, though, because he went in. And he's like, well, what do you want to be? And he's like, I want to be a blacksmith who invents bicycles. And the DM's like, you can't do that. You can't. You're a fighter. You're going to be a fighter. And then we're walking down this road and they're like, what are we going to do? And or we're walking along a swamp and he's like, I have jump. I want to jump in the swamp. We're like, why would you jump in the swamp? He's like, because I have jump No. It's like, I'm going to climb a tree. Like, fine, you climb a tree, you see swamp, you come down. What is happening? Some lizard folk come out. He's like, I have ride. I want to ride the lizard folk. And the DM was just like, stop it. You're making a mockery of this. I really wish he'd let him try to ride the lizard man. Because it was like, you know what? If you're going to push all the boundaries, you're going to find out where the edges are. And one is that lizard people don't like being ridden.
Yeah. Unless they do. And that's a different conversation. So Ella Bama wants to know if you have chances to play D&D now. Other than Gamehole Con, I presume.
Sorry, what?
Other than Gamehole Con, I assume.
Yeah. I have a gaming group. We have not. We've kind of finished our 5e game because we're going to start playing Invisible Sun from Monty Cook Games. But we have like one more session to like do the thing, and everybody's been busy. So, and you know, part of this too is like our DM made this cool. It's actually Susan, my former editor, is our DM now. She's amazing, and the game is amazing, and it's a lot of fun. But I think she's getting a little tired of it, and she wants to try something new. And so, Invisible Sun is kind of fun because it really encourages kind of character development and cooperation. And one of our big problems is our wizard is a dick. That's about it. He just does things and gets us into a lot of trouble. And I think it drives her a little crazy maybe, but he's not in person. His character is. He's often just murders someone, and then we have to figure out what to do about it. And that wouldn't work. Apparently won't work. So we'll see.
That's hilarious. We have somebody named Sycorax80 here who says, hi, Aaron. I have always been a big fan of Forgotten Realms, but mostly older books. Your enthusiastic way of talking about Forgotten Realms actually got me searching for your books. Thanks.
Good.
And then, let's see. I don't understand this question personally, but Low Wisdom Check wants to know if you could tell us a little bit about how Mehen's sexual orientation came about.
Okay. So Mehen is Farida's dragonborn foster father. She and her sister were abandoned in a village that's sort of like, dragonborn have very strict rules about how you should behave. And so this is sort of like, if you get kicked out of your clan, you're now like, you're a weirdo in the city. So there are sometimes these villages, and this particular one, Irish Biome, is sort of up in the mountains, and it's, you know, full of people who have been ostracized. And Mehen he was the son of a patriarch from a particular clan, Berthissa Thurgish. Say that 3 times fast. And actually his father was just a monster and wanted Mehen to get married just basically to take down a different clan. So he bailed. He basically said, cool, take my piercings, I'm done. And went to Irish Biome and adopted these girls that nobody wanted, because you have 2 little weird tiefling children, one of whom's got like a heterochromia. Like, that doesn't seem like good news. But he's like, are you people nuts? These are babies. So the thing is, when I came up with Mehen, he was gay, and that was just who he was. It was one of those things where it's sort of like the character comes to you. There are aspects that you figure out as you go, and then there are aspects where it's like this is the truth. And at the time, the people in charge were concerned that would turn off the boy readers. So they didn't want that. So, but I was like, but it's true. If you read Brimstone Angels, there's some like sort of sly implications of it. There's a succubus in Brimstone Angels that ends up getting control of Mehen, and the daughters are like, but how did that work? And the implication that one of the characters takes is that she's not a dragonborn, but the real fact is like she's not a dude. But the thing that was nice is I sort of figured I'd just like build up enough of these, and then I'd let it out, and if they were like, you can't do that, I'll be like, I've been doing it for ages, where nobody stopped me. It wasn't a great plan, but it was what I had. And then with the Sundering, they said, okay, this rule is stupid. We want lots of different kinds of characters. We want a really diverse character base. You know, and so go for it. Do the things you want to do. And I was like, okay, cool. And so I didn't have to be coy about it anymore. And then, you know, he goes back home and finds a nice guy. But yeah, no, that was just always true. It was one of those things where, like, I feel like there are a lot of things about a character are malleable, and you can change them. But there are times where you hit something and you're like, this is too important. I can't take it out. And so you have to figure out how to make it work. And sometimes that means you have to shift things around them. You know, one of the examples is like Farida was originally a character I played at Wizards, but she was totally different, right? She had a different person. I kept the name because I liked the name, and she was still a warlock, but I was playing a Fae Pact warlock, which, like, if you're going to write a book about tieflings, not the best connection. Yeah. And the twin sister thing was in there, but Havilar is nothing like for the game character's twin sister. But we had made them be raised by like a village of Dragonborn. And I liked that detail. It was weird, but I liked it. And I was like, I can't make this a thing like that just kind of gets tossed out there because it's too weird. It draws too much attention. But if there's a character here, then he's a Dragonborn and he's the one that matters, then it works. And so that's how I came up with Mehen, because that detail felt too important. Yeah. And so there's that case of like just kind of digging down and going like, where's the piece that matters? And making it fit.
Cool. Mr. Woofles would like to know how much writing you get done each day.
What are you, my editor? No, I try for at least 2,000 words a day. It's some days that's easier than others. Like I said, I have 2 kids. One of them goes to a lot of different like physical therapy and things like that. So there's a little bit of an interruption, but that's what I shoot for. And then there's also, you know, when you're working on something that you're just starting up, you have to do a lot of world building, and that doesn't count, but it counts. So that's my goal. And when I can do better than that, it's awesome. I got 4,600 the other day. It was amazing. But it is, yeah, it depends.
This question is kind of interesting, and I wonder if it's because they're hoping that you're going to be doing something like this. Time wants to know, why do you think we see a fair amount of sci-fi horror when there is comparably little fantasy horror?
That's a good question. I think that fantasy has historically been hopeful and a little looking back, like we've lost something and we need to find it again. And I think horror sort of subverts that in some ways. Like if we've lost something, we don't want to find it. And so it's doable. It is, because there's, you know, so many fantastic elements to horror. It's part of me is like, I don't want to let the cat out of the bag too much, but a gal in my writing group has just finished this really fabulous YA horror novel that's like spooky ghost road stuff. So when it comes out, you should all read it, but it's not out yet. But yeah, horror is I think a really interesting genre to pick apart.
Okay, this one from one of your fans, Feora. Aaron, if we have questions about characters in the series, is Twitter a good place to continue asking you those questions, or is there a place on your website we can submit them? Also, they have a bunch more. Also, are we going to get Dalhavi, I don't know how to say, Verithisouthigesh?
Verithisouthigesh.
Sure. Bryn Crownsilver, maybe Lorcan?
So if you have questions about characters, Twitter is a good place. I am not the fastest at social media stuff these days, because something's got to give, and I'd rather write books than be the best social media-er. But I do check, and I do try to answer. So that's a good spot. There is a contact form on my website, and I usually answer those too. The Twitter is nice because if I answer it and someone else has that question, they can see it too. And if the question's really huge, I sometimes will do those on my blog. But I think the other question is for you guys, because I believe I was asked that earlier, like, are you guys going to do the other Brimstone Angels characters? I assume that's fairly far out. But
this one, I don't know if you'll have this answer, but Dated Sandwich, that's a good name. So I think there's an official Farida stat block, but it's pre-Devil You Know. Is there a more up-to-date one? And also, what about Havilar? So we got a Farida stat block from Wizards that we ended up using for the game.
Is it I love that. That is a very wonderful stat block. I'm blanking on the name of the guy who built that. Chris. It's one of the Chris's. There's a lot of Chris's.
Yeah.
But that one is from the release of Fire in the Blood. There isn't one more recent than that. And to my knowledge, no one's ever done one for Havilar. I feel bad for Havilar because she always, in the books, she always feels like Farida's getting all the attention, and it was kind of true. But that's unfortunately not my strength. Like I said, I came in the back door for this. It's around the corner. But if anybody wants to make those things, I will share them widely. Devil You Know is post Devil You Know, it would be an interesting thing to do, because there are implications about Farida's status, but there's a lot of ways to possibly interpret it. Mm-hmm. Because if I did more books, I would like room to decide what I want. But yeah.
Jurek wants to know if you've ever thought about voicing your own audiobook.
No, but I've done readings. I think being an audiobook narrator would be fun, but my son who's in first grade much prefers when I read, because I do the voices. So part of me is like, that would be fun. I just get paid for reading books. But I don't know. I feel like I don't have any training at it, so I don't know what I don't know, you know.
I think you just record yourself saying it.
Right, but there's gotta be bits, like when do you need to enunciate better? Or, actually, when you say that, it sounds like you're sneezing. So
you're like, oh, I was stifling a sneeze, actually.
I've done readings from like Facebook groups and things like that, and I anticipate doing those in the future. But
okay, so I got a follow-up question from Low Wisdom Check. What is the end game for Farida and Dahl? Happily ever after? Did they settle down?
This is one of those, and like, the series is done, and it's been done for 2 years, but so many of your players are just being introduced to it, just like so many of my readers are just being introduced to your game. I think that Farida deserves a happily ever after. I think that they suit each other well, if messily, and if I had thoughts for future things for them, for complications and resolutions and things, but I'm happy where I left it.
Okay, and then I have what seems like a pretty perfect closing question from Sounds Like Whiskey. How do you think your background in anthropology has influenced your writing?
Like a ton. I think it's a big part of what I like about doing things with the deep world, because there's sometimes you will come across fantasy novels where it's clear that this person really loves world building, and maybe that's because they are a real experienced DM, or maybe they just really like reading about it. And so you have a lot of information, a lot of details, and the implication of this huge, huge world. But there's not a whole lot of thought about how this impacts this. Mm-hmm. And I think one place where studying anthropology makes a big difference is that you start to think about that web, and why having this, resource really be plentiful creates this mindset, or why if you have this mindset, you're never going to see this class exist. If you say, for example, that, one example is with the Dragonborn. So the Dragonborn, came together, became a race in a beer, right? In this alternate world that is connected to Faerun and Toril. And they were created to be a slave race for dragon tyrants. And when they come over, and in 4th edition, you know, they say the Dragonborn, they're very hospitable and friendly, and also they're atheists. And that's weird. Just as a start, it's weird that it's weird to be an atheist in the Forgotten Realms, because God's literally popped down and like, what's up? You want to join me? Yeah. And here you suddenly have this city of 50,000 people, and nobody's claimed them. And so why is nobody bothering them? And so figuring out, if you have this state, how did we get here? Well, you have this state because these people were enslaved. And so now Dragonborn don't really trust, they're not a trusting kind of friendly. They're sussing you out because they need allies, and that is like written down in their bones, that the whole is stronger than the individual. And so you're not automatically cut out, but you're sort of getting vetted every minute. And then with gods, because you basically have to like make a deal with them. You have to put yourself under them, and they see that as a yoke. Like, they've tied themselves to this being, and what are they getting out of it? And what is that God getting out of it? And you know what? Never mind. We can do this on our own. And there is this total mistrust there that becomes, you know, kind of starts to make that make sense. Like, you can say, yes, I understand. That is a God. It is super powerful. It's definitely here. I want its business. And so that kind of thing, where you start to go, well, if this is true, if I want this to be true, how is that going to cascade out? And how is that going to imply other things and create a really nice textured whole that feels real?
Yeah. Cool. Well, it's after 2 o'clock. So I know you have things to do, and so I don't want to hold you hostage any longer with our.
It's very easy for me to talk about this
with our conversation. But thank you so much for taking time out of your day to join us, and thank you even more for creating Farida to share with the world. And you know, we're super stoked to have her in the game, and
I'm super stoked to see her. Thanks for having me.
No worries. Yes, and. Yeah, I look forward to in the future hearing about your DMing at GameholeCon or whatever else you get up to next. So yeah, thank you for joining us.
Thanks.
That was awesome. What an incredibly fun person to talk to. So yes, thank you, Aaron, for joining us on stream today. I know I've been ignoring chat quite a lot more than I usually do, just because I before we got this the new overlay ready, I was watching one of our older videos, and just it pained me personally to see how distracted I can be by our setup while talking to somebody, because it just, as somebody who prefers to engage with people when they're here in person or whatever, and I like, you know, making eye contact and talking and not looking at your phone, etc. You know, just trying to do that better on stream while managing everything. So my apologies for ignoring everybody, but I saw quite a few of you were in chat before this even started, and the chat is really active now. Thank you for joining. Yes, in a few minutes, I'm going to show 2 time-lapse videos for Farida, because we don't just produce an art asset for the champion now. Obviously, you can see Farida here on screen, just kicking butt, torching things with her scorching rays, which looks suspiciously like Ashara's magic missiles, except red, but with her glowing hands, and then a sweet ultimate where she lights up like, that is so sweet. Yeah, we're gonna show off the art time lapse for both Farida and for Farida's portrait, because Alexis recorded drawing her portrait. So I'm going to turn off this game music because there'll be other music through that video, and we will kick off the art time lapse for Farida. So in 3, 2, 1, don't break. was also worried that it might be a little bit too loud. It doesn't look like it's going to be. Okay, yeah, that's not bad. That's an okay volume. So, while this is running, I'm going to start reading through the questions that we brought in that weren't necessarily relevant to just directed towards Aaron. So I'm going to start going over those now while you can see the 4,000% speed version of Alexis Thoreau, one of our senior artists, putting together Farida for the first time. So let's see. Got a very technical question from Ray Cool. Thanks, Ray Cool. Farida's Hellish Rebuke, the description says it's off her DPS, which is different from Gromma's Spike Shell being based on her base attack damage. Is Hellish Rebuke actually calculated by multiplying by the number of targets? I have no idea. I need to make a note on that for Justin, because that is a Justin or Mark question, since they would have put that in. So I do know that right now Farida's ultimate does not display correctly, unless we fixed it in the update, the push that went out today. Because it wasn't showing the amount of damage that it does. So I know that there's some aspects that could be updated. So I will wait on that one. Gozer goes, what's up with ranged mobs one-shotting my champions? Well, for starters, I mean, and this goes back to a question that we had a long time ago on stream. We want people to be afraid of ranged champions, just like ranged enemies, just like you are in an actual D&D game. Like a whole bunch of archers, that's trouble. Anyways, I see that Justin in chat mentioned that Hellish Rebuke is based off of DPS and not damage. That's good. But anyways, so the scaling for High Harvesttide, when it first came out a year ago, we were still working on it. We were still trying to figure it out, and we were still trying to, kind of come up with a blueprint that we were going to move forward with other events. And so it wasn't an event where you needed to clear up to area 175 like many of them have been. It was 125 or 150. And the scaling for enemies was different. Now we've since kind of standardized that scaling across events. So when we noticed that players were tying really early, Justin went in and he instituted a fix either this morning or maybe last night, where he kind of updated the enemy damage scaling over the course of the adventure, which also would have been something that would have come up in the next few adventures as well, because we didn't really standardize it until I want to say midwinter. So yeah, you'll just have to, you'll just have to keep leveling up your champions and get that health up. KXV, are we going to get a bonus for the hours we spent farming with the broken difficulty? Nope. Gemus 187, why I got one hit this event? That never happened before. Yeah, you need more. You need more health. Where is Binwin? Well, Binwin, if you have unlocked him, swaps with Naeli. But I'm not currently using him in my formation because this is a Farida formation. So I was trying to stack damage on her to see how my progression is with her, and she seems strong. I don't know if she's superior to using a Strix, especially since my Strix has 3 golden epics and 2 shinies, and my Farida is nowhere near as well geared, but she also seems very strong. Yeah, certainly. Like, I'm just watching my game on the side screen here while this time lapse is going, seeing wizards come on screen and throw fireball at my tank and then a Hellish Rebuke go back and kill them is pretty awesome and has loads of potential. Anyways, Slim Jim Doglord, does anybody know in regards to idle champions why auto progress keeps turning off? That's a good question. It's a hard thing to answer in your case without knowing more, but yeah, it saw somebody's response to my Archer thing. Anyways, yeah, Slim Jim Doglord, I don't know if that's a bug or if there's something else going on, because your auto progress just turning off isn't enough information for me to know. I can think of a few things, like when if you have auto progress on and you close the game and reload it, sometimes it might not just keep progressing. So certainly it is not the intent to have it automatically turn off all the time. Sheepy Mez. Archers aren't trouble. My halfling Gloomstalker merely uses control flames to turn out the torches and hides while firing his own arrows at them. Well, yeah, but Gloomstalkers are overpowered in the dark. And I say that as somebody who made a Gloomstalker swashbuckler rogue. Because, you know, who doesn't want an insane amount of initiative and a opening round where you absolutely annihilate several, you know, up to several characters, enemies. Anyways, Gloomstalkers are awesome. Alabama. Might we see other Forgotten Realms characters like Erebus Kale from Paulus Kim? Might help with evil variants. We have a pretty long list of Forgotten Realms characters we'd like to add. Not just characters that streamers and other performers play on shows, but ones from books, like Farida or the Companions as a whole. We try to balance releasing them, but what we want is for basically... Gloomstalker Scout. Scouts are very good. In some ways that might be better than a swashbuckler. The Scout... Yeah, I mean, sneak attack damage on Gloomstalkers is already bonkers. Totally talking about 5e. This is in no way related to the game. And Scouts are so mobile. They are so crazy mobile. You could kite forever. And Giant Dwarf, I see. Gloomstalker Assassin. Hey, that's awesome. It hits hard. I like Gloomstalker Swashbuckler because I like the fact that you just get... You get so between what is it called? Rakish Audacity. You get like your wisdom bonus to your initiative, your charisma bonus to your initiative. You get an extra attack on your on the first round, and you get to automatically, you know, you get to hit more going first, and so on and so forth. It's just, I like the combination of how it stacks up because I think you could make an extremely mobile character that is fluid in both ranged and melee. But if you're a true min-maxer, yeah, Gloomstalker Assassin or Gloomstalker Scout might be better. Anyways. Silisa, can we get limits on potion use? For instance, if you have a ton of potions, say 200 plus, you go to use them in your inventory, it's very difficult to select 2 to 5 as the slider grows with how many potions you have. Bounty contracts and such are limited to just 10 per click. I'd like to see it extended to all consumables for easier use. That totally makes sense as a very cool quality of life bit of feedback, Silisa, and so I'm making a note here for, I don't know, David or Justin, to see if we can't do something like that down the line. Because yeah, it makes sense. Keep things consistent, right? Let's see. Related to Silisa's question, could we get limits on contracts removed? Trying to burn through even 300 is a pain. Alternate request. Warning similar to what exists for favor use. Okay, so what I'm hearing from both of you now is that we need to make an adjustment so that if you have a lot to go through, you can go through more, but so that it isn't a nightmare to go through to get a small number when you have too many. So I don't know. We'll see. I feel like that tends to fall into David's kind of wheelhouse a lot of the time, but I'll see what they say. Nomad84. I'm going to pretend I speak for all of chat when I say we're fine with you engaging more with your guest. It makes for a better interview for us to watch anyways. Oh, thanks. And Connect Monkey, thanks. He thought you did a fine job of paying it. Thank you. Evil Emperor Zerg. Dylan, how much time is spent coming up with stream codes? I don't know, a couple minutes, maybe, sometimes. I mean, it's not really hard to pick a combination of words that is 16 characters. You know, and we have a lot of default words we use, because like loot being 4 letters long, code being 4 letters long, chest being 5, so it's like you have some flexibility for putting stuff together. But I was just really stoked that Chosen of Asmodeus fit because it's so perfect for a Farida focused stream. So yeah, just a couple minutes. Mighty Moyen, I was wondering if I was to cast a turn undead spell in real life, would it get rid of my wife's family, kind of like turn in in-laws? I mean, unless your wife's family has been raised from the dead, Mighty Moyen, I don't know if that would work. Sketchmonkey 007. So that means Farida does not need to be your main damage dealer for Hellish Rebuke to be good. Well, no, she does. Because if it's based off of her damage, like, you know, her DPS number, that's like underneath her character in the screen on a little bit of UI. If you want Hellish Rebuke to be awesome, you need her to be as good as possible. But I think it'll still be good, in some other instances because of things like, you know, I haven't tested it yet, but I would assume and I could be mistaken, but I would assume that if you're dealing with hit-spaced monsters, and she's there, and your tank is getting hit by them, that the Hellish Rebukes will be hitting those monsters back, which would be freaking awesome. I'd love to test Durable Deep with this now, assuming that works. That would be very cool. If I hadn't already struggled through Durable Deep way back when. Let's see, Nomad 84. We've talked before about having more player-facing statistics available, and I recently dug into game files to discover that I finished my quest for full epics on core champions after opening 496 gold chests. Is that the sort of statistic that may be more accessible in some future quality of life pass? That's a really good question. So, I mean, statistics that we want to add to the game are not finalized. We know that people have an intense interest in a lot of the behind-the-scenes workings and how the different parts of the game come together. And certainly many of those things we want to help to facilitate, make it easier for people to find out that kind of information. But in terms of picking specifically which statistics are shown where and how that pops up in the UI or in the adventure completion screen, I mean, that's David's domain, and I don't know offhand what's going to end up in there or what his shortlist looks like. So, yeah, it's possible, but I'm not quite clear yet on what that kind of update will look like, especially since a lot of our quality of life updates tend to be things that, like, we had time to fix X, Y, and Z, and there just happens to be a push going out related to some kind of update, whether it's an event or something else, and so, like, they get kind of tacked on. So we've never had a consistent cadence for releasing quality of life updates, and that is something that we would like to get into. Anyways, Mike Hermit, is there a way to see how many chests I have opened? I have 10 shinies, all were either from purchase or promotion. None have been from opening chests. I've been playing since week 2 of this game. I opened over 150 this past week. Wondering if I have really bad luck or if something is broken. No, the shiny items, shiny equipment cards and chests it's pure RNG. And it's, yeah, it can take a lot of chests. I mean, if it's a 0.1% chance at any given point, like, in theory, you're guaranteed one every, 1,000 chests or so. But it can, it's funny. The initial design idea around shiny equipment cards was never that players would be using them as a form of progression. It was always that they were a kind of random thing where sometimes you would end up with an especially amazing version of an item. So as far as I know, there's no bad luck protection on it, and I'm sure I can be corrected on that by Justin, but I'm pretty sure that there isn't. Anyways, so yeah, it might be bad luck, Mike Hermit. It might be that you've already got one, but a lot of the players who have opened a great deal of shiny equipment cards will do things like they will open thousands of silver chests just because they're cheap to purchase with gems, and yeah, they can just set up a script or something to open as many as they can. Giant Dwarf, with Hellish Rebuke being a racial trait, any chance of Makos getting some aspect of it in his rebalance? I think it's unlikely. I mean, obviously they're both warlocks, and they're both tieflings. Yeah, I mean, depending on what kind of warlock, because there are a handful of warlocks that don't have Hellish Rebuke, but it would certainly make sense. But, like, we're not going to give all abilities to all characters based on race or class, because one, we kind of want the champions to feel distinctly different and for them to have different, distinctly different kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Feel and role in a party. And so, if we have 3 warlocks and they all have Hellish Rebuke and they all have, they all use Eldritch Blast, because, I mean, let's face it, every warlock uses Eldritch Blast for the most part, etc. It would we don't want to do that. We kind of want them to feel very distinctly different. So I don't know that it's likely that Makos in game will get Hellish Rebuke, but I'm also not going to remove those things from possibility entirely, because, I mean, we might change our minds about it in the future like we do sometimes. Queen Lily 272, about how many champions do you have lined up currently? I definitely can't answer much of that question, but what I can say is that published in our weekly roadmap right now, which you can find as part of the Idle Champions community Q&A that I did yesterday on our subreddit, which is reddit.com/r/idlechampions. I bet it's not on the front page anymore because people were probably all talking about High Harvestide 2. Yep, I'm just going to scroll down here because I don't want to accidentally reveal anything that I'm not supposed to. But basically, we have confirmed that Valanya Umvarar, Satine Phoenix's character from Sirens of the Realms, that she also did a live play of in the stream of Many Eyes as part of the Off the Table, is coming to the game. Paulton Seppa, Nate Sharp's character from Dice Camera Action, is coming to the game. And Neris Cathan, who's from, I think, created by Jim Zub as part of the Baldur's Gate comic series to join Minsk and Delina and Criddle and Shandy and so on. Neris Cathan is also coming to the game. So those are the ones that I can confirm are in our pipeline. There are quite a few more in our pipeline, and there's a balance of characters portrayed by streamers, actors, and also characters that are from books. So we just did a couple book champions in Wolfgar and Farida. The next one will not be a book champion. The next one will be exciting. Although, I mean, I guess we'll see what their kit's like. But yeah, the next one is, I think also not one of those ones listed. Anyways, we have tons in the pipeline, like dozens. Nile Sustanet. Oh, my head is in the way of the old text for how Farida functions, since it says she's a DPS in support when she's not really a support. We realized quite late that actually, if you don't make her your DPS, she's not a support. She's only a support if she's your DPS. So, yeah. Now you might be thinking that the same video is starting again, but it's not. Alrighty, can we please get the ability to buy and open gold chests for gems in bulk? I'm adding that to the list. It's one of those bits of feedback where we frequently get that feedback from a small number of players, but it's one of those things you basically really gotta make Dave think that we need it. Can we somehow get to see more information? For example, when you mouse over a statistic, see more details for how the stat affects the character. Also, how about we get to see what the next upgrade on each character do? It's kind of hard for new players like myself to know what's coming next. I can't seem to plan what my next upgrade should be because I don't know all of my character's upgrades. Okay, well that's some good feedback. We've talked about different solutions to that, and I'm not clear because the character screen right now with their background information and stuff like that's getting updated. Like it's part of a future update, and we have plans on how to change it to include more information and stuff. And I don't know if that's part of it or not. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make a note about it because that is another UI related thing, and thus would be something tied to David or possibly Jacob doing it most likely. So we shall see. Potion combining or transmuting. We don't have plans to do a system like that, Cranky Frank, but again, I suppose it's possible. Money's worth 1. Do you plan on ever creating missions that have a base cycle of longer than 50 areas before they repeat? I enjoy how most of them are structured currently, but now that I'm getting to the 300 plus areas, I'm seeing a whole cycle about 6 or 7 times. So basically, 50 areas was a good length for the adventures and to balance around when we were designing everything to start. And so, like, if you're finding the dialogue repetitive, you can actually turn off the dialogue for free plays in the setting menu. But yeah, we've talked about having longer adventures, like 75 or 100 area adventures, but it's not an idea that's really picked up steam for us. So yeah, I'm not saying that we won't ever do it, but it's kind of like everything is kind of built around it and balanced around it now. So changing things up might lead to some other unintended changes. Let's see, an hour to kill. What is your opinion on a variant with waves of rust monsters where you can only use characters that don't use armor and metal weapons? That sounds ruthless, which means that Justin will probably like it. So I'm just going to make a note here, and I'll pass that along to him so he can enjoy a way of making everybody feel that pain at a future date. Nomad84. Not a question, just wanted to reiterate how happy I am, and at least a handful of folks in game chat are, with the approach that was chosen for Year 2 events. Being able to top off Year 1 champion gear without having to sacrifice Year 2 champion progression feels great. Awesome, Nomad84. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. That's something that was discovered in testing, and obviously there was a bit of feedback around it when Chris did his Year 2 event FAQ, sort of Q&A, last week now. That was last week, right? Yeah, it was last week. But yeah, in testing, we really just kind of... I wonder why the music cut out there. That's weird. Did the video just stop? That's so strange. Well, anyways, at least it stopped on that frame. That is a portrait of Farida. So, yeah. Awesome work by Alexis. And you guys can see that there's some other portraits there because we have put together a gamepad UI, and I am not clear yet whether or not it's available to Steam players. I will have to wait and see, because I'm not quite clear on exactly when it's going out, but it's going to go out to all of our Steam players for testing because we're still working on it and it requires more work. But these beautiful portraits that Adam and Alexis have been working on for quite a while now to get caught up are a part of that interface. So we'll be doing portraits of all of our champions from here on out. Now it's just awkwardly quiet. I'm just going to go back to the solo view of the game, and I'm going to put the game music back on because, yeah, the silence makes me think too much about myself and hear my own inner monologue. So, you know, back to the music. What area are they in? 146. All right, we'll just keep going. Anywho. Candyman, what happens with offline gold gain while using a speed potion? Does it boost gold then? Potions don't do anything when the game is closed. Can we get a tiefling bard? That would be great. I like that idea. A tiefling bard, though, would that not encourage a Deacon Farida formation with both bard buffs and tieflings? And anyways, I like it. I can't think of any canonical ones off the top of my head, and I'm not sure that I know of any streamers playing a tiefling bard right now. In fact, I don't think any of the yeah, I don't know, we'll see. I'm not sure where that tiefling bard would have to come from, Silisa, but I'm sure someday it'll happen. Holy hacks, Batman. Is there a way of seeing all the characters that you have yet to unlock? So if you're new to the game and you've never earned enough favor to see the higher, like the characters up all the way up to slot 12, like here's Azaka, Zorbu, and Archon, you don't see them at all. So, I mean, with the way the game is currently designed and everything currently shows up, the best thing for you to do would be to go onto the Discord or the wiki and find some way to look at it. Yeah, because we don't, as far as I know, have any other way in game to look at it. And also, I just saw, who was it who said that? I need to double check who. Chat's scrolling so fast. I want to say it was it Giant Dwarf? Garwar. It was Garwar saying that if we add another bard to the game, it should be the Tortle one from Critical Role that has bagpipes in his shell. I don't know how many of you watch Critical Role. I presume everybody, because if you watch streamers and you like D&D, then of course you watch Critical Role, right? That's how it works. And it's on in like how many hours? 5.5, 6.5 hours? No, wait, it's 2:30? 2:30, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 4.5 hours. 4.5 hours until Critical Role. So just hang in there. Anyways, there's a ridiculously awesome Tortle Bard / Navigator that they've added to the game that is just a delight. Okay. Bass or base Prefect. Is it Bass Prefect or Base Prefect? I'm sure Base Prefect makes more sense, but I like to think that it's Bass. Okay, so I'm a relatively newer player. Should I just be getting as far as I can, complete the adventure, and then start over again to gain more favor? Yeah, basically. You want to progress until your progression slows down so much that, you know, the time that you would need to make any further progress is just ridiculous. And so that's what we call your wall. Like when you get as far as you can before you stop being able to either earn enough gold to buy more upgrades or you stop being able to kill things, that's your wall. So what you want to do is you want to push to your wall over and over again. Eventually your wall will be, you know, you've level capped all of your characters and the only thing you can do is add levels to them that increase their DPS and health but don't give them any more buffs or upgrades. And so that's like your true wall. And when you get to your true wall, yeah, like hopefully at that point you're investing in blessings to keep pushing that wall further. But yeah, it kind of just goes on indefinitely. But yeah, I hope that's Bass Prefect and not Base Prefect because I don't know. I think of that old SNL video with the Super Bassomatic 76 and Dan Aykroyd. And now you all know that I'm old. Nomad 84. There's been a bug for a while now. I think since the new shop UI, maybe. Where you enter a chess code, your font in the game in-game chat becomes almost unreadably large. Should I be bugging all my friends to submit support tickets to expedite to fix for this? We know that the bug exists, so you shouldn't. But I'm glad that you know. Bases and base clef, not a fish. Oh, you're disappointing me, Base Prefect, but I will not call you Bass Prefect. I'll call you Base Prefect. Manual turret. Do Barrowin stacks count in Hellish Rebuke? That's a good question. I don't think so. But I could be wrong. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I hadn't even gotten so far as to try testing out Barrowin with Farida yet. So it's possible. I'm just waiting for the answer on that one. Sorry. I'm just like, I really don't know. And I don't want to accidentally spread misinformation. Oh, Justin answered it in chat. Barrowin stacks do not count for Hellish Rebuke. So they don't. God, that'd be overpowered. Could you imagine a 4-stack Farida that you just plunk in your party at your wall and then you blow up everything on screen that's attacking your tank? Good lord. Okay, so UI swap. Could it be possible to buy 1 gold chest with gems on the far right? It's a very common thing for players to do, and it's on the opposite side of the screen compared to the previous screen's buy chest option. I don't know. I mean, I'll make a note for David, but considering the crazy amount of time they spent working on the new shop UI, I have a hard time picturing them making significant changes to it at this point. Like many an afternoon spent arguing over where things were going to go, and then Adam designing it and redesigning it, redesigning the aesthetics and everything, and then Jacob programming it in. Like, it's as somebody who didn't work in the video game industry before Codename Entertainment, it absolutely, I had an idea of what I thought it took to make games and things related to just like programming commitments and artist commitments and everything, but like to see it firsthand, holy crap, things like even things that you might think might be tiny changes require an incredible amount of work. So yeah, I don't know if that'll change, but at worst I can pass the feedback along. Let's see. Can we get character sheets for all champions? The only ones available are the ones in your active lineup. You can switch to see the others, which is a hassle. You can also view their page and collections, but also a hassle. I just want to be able to go through them, checking alignment, stats, race, to be able to compare them all. That's another interesting bit of feedback. I'll see if, because we are going to be updating the champion information screen, so that might be something that can be added to it. It might not, but I'll pass the feedback along. Phil Z12. Question, is there a plan for a future hero to have a pull-in ability or special to help with range mobs? Asking for cases where I pushed my wall in a boss wave. I can kill the boss, but I'm stuck for 10 minutes trying to kill 2 ranged mobs. That's always a possibility. We've had champions who have pushed enemies away. So there's always the chance that we will have champions that do the opposite. Baron Stromgard, hi Dylan, joining late today. Curious if you ever got an answer to what the intended effect on armored opponents is with expired Fire Breath potions. I didn't, actually, yeah, because Justin only got back from his wedding like mid-late last week, and then I totally forgot about it and did not follow up with him. So there's a note here already from Erica to ask Justin about it, so maybe Justin has an answer. But yes, yeah, I don't know. Royal Gentleman, is a new Evergreen champion coming soon? Okay, so I know we have more than one in development right now, but I don't know where in the calendar they are in terms of release. So that's a very good question that Chris could spoil. But yeah. Carvin, this is confusing. Justin says it's her DPS, but Dylan says it's her listen damage under her. The damage number underneath Farida is her DPS. Anyways, Royal Gentlemen, I don't know when the next one is coming. I just know that that more are coming. You know, more than one are coming. I'm not even. There might be another one this year, but I'm not sure where in the release schedule they are. So possible. Magenta shirt. How about future Nordum multi-classes into Bard? Oh man, everybody's always. Oh, Dylan is incorrect. The number under her is her attack damage, not her DPS. I thought it was her DPS. Oh, okay. Well, whatever. Magenta shirt. Future Nordum multi-class into Bard. Everybody's always asking about Nordum the Modron. As far as I know, there is no Planescape related 5e thing coming. So our ability to get champions in, because keep in mind that anybody that we add to the game is someone that we also have to go through, somebody that we also have to get approved by Wizards. And Nordum doesn't strike me as a character that would even probably get approval right now, because we tend to be pretty focused both on Forgotten Realm but also on 5e, and so characters, you know, the only older characters we have really are like the Companions of the Hall, but everybody else is like published in 5e or played by somebody in a campaign that's in 5e, and so you know, Planescape characters a little less likely. So yeah. Booch Games, any word on High Roller taking off these 2 weeks and how it's going to affect the Idle Champions rewards? Yeah, okay, so we didn't have a finalized answer for that when you asked it in the Q&A yesterday. I assume it's the same person, because when we planned out the High Rollers campaign for the game, this break wasn't a part of that planning, and so the campaign for the in-game, the High Rollers, the dice earning campaign, etc., is going to run as long as that campaign does. So whatever their new ending date is going to be, that's when our event will end. The thing that's going to change that I'm not quite clear on is the amount of dice that can be earned by players in the interim, because obviously if there's a 2-week break that they take off, that means that there's a 3-week window of earning dice for the one where they come back. So we'll have to make a math adjustment on that, so that we don't earn them 3,000 dice for when they come back, but so that the number is a little bit more what they're used to. So yeah, it'll keep going for the duration of it. Let's see. Candyman, assuming you can't answer, but should the plan be for a Triton soon, as Ishi's buff to Tall includes them? We were just future-proofing Ishi a little bit there. We have included in several instances in the game references to races that may be added in the future, because when we were designing earlier, we may have not included all of them. So, yeah. I feel like we don't have enough rogues. Vax or not? Oh, not. Because I like Not as a character way more. Not that there's anything wrong with Vax, but Not would be my preference. You know, if by some weird fluke that happened, which seems unlikely. Beyond limitation. Random idea. Any chance of a beholder champion, maybe a playable Xanathar? That is so unlikely. Yeah, playable Xanathar. Beholders are pretty special, which is one of the reasons why we haven't added one to the game yet. Yeah, a beholder champion is very, very, very unlikely. Never mind that, I mean, they're powerful, right? Like, beholders are so crazy dangerous. If you wanted to have one in the formation that we had right now, you'd probably have to take out 3 or 4 slots to like plunk them there and then have them take up that much of the formation. I'm not going to say it's never going to happen because, I don't know, I might say, no, it's never going to happen. And then 3 months from now, Justin will be like, oh, yeah, we should have a familiar. A beholder. But it's so unlikely, yeah. Especially given the number of lore heroes and other characters we want to add to the game. Zarta, will equipment give more survivability once the tanking and healing update hits? Having huge problems with survivability in this event. I definitely cannot say anything related to that update because I have only heard a pitch about what that update could look like. And yeah, I don't know how that's going to shake up. It sounds to me like it's going to be a pretty significant overhaul to some of the core mechanics of how the game plays. And so that's going to impact things and cause other things and yada, yada, yada. It's definitely not a subject I can really get into with any kind of authority. When we have information to share about that update, we definitely will. Let's see. Base prefect. Okay, another question. I've read conflicting reports between saving my gems for gold chests or just splurging on silver chests. Which way is preferable? So the reason it's conflicting is because they're both better for you at different times. If you're trying to open silver equipment cards, which, the odds are tiny, you would want want to be opening silver chests because they're cheaper to earn, so you can get them. And if you're a completionist and you want to open all the slots for every champion so that there's no gaps in their gear, then obviously there's gear that you can only really get from silver chests because that will never not show up in the gold chests. At the same time, depending on how geared you are, until you have epic equipment on all of your core champions and all of your evergreen champions, the characters that get added to permanent campaigns, until they're all decked out in epics, it's worthwhile to open gold chests because you want to get everybody up to an epic gear level at least. And then past that point, there's a bit of diminishing returns on how effective chests are because each upgrade will be a smaller and smaller percentage overall increase. But yeah, you want to get up to full epics. So, I mean, gold chests are worth opening until then. And, if you have another... when we have another evergreen champion come out, like Azaka did not that long ago, if I can pull up my screen here, and most of our Azaka, like, you want to deck them out in epic gear as quickly as you can. So, to guarantee that's 60 chests, right? So, 60 chests once you've already got epics on everybody else. Oh, I accidentally minimized the game and set up. Here we go. No more stuttering frame rate. Anyway, so yeah, it varies depending on where you are in progress and stuff, base prefect, but yeah, gold until you're geared, and then silvers to get shinies. Baron Stromguard, is the damage from mobs and events correct at this point? It still seems like they're doing inordinately high damage even after restarting. As far as I know, this is the intended damage. The fix that Justin put through this morning would have covered it. They do the same damage as other enemies. They just... those ranged wizards they're mean. Alabama, any update on plans for tablet users getting something similar to chess codes? I don't have an update on it. It's something it's on our list. And I know I know that it's a really unsatisfying and even sometimes discouraging answer to hear that it's on our list. Like, it's on the list of things that we want to do. But you're also kind of asking us, how can we bypass the license agreement that we have with Apple and Google to use their storefronts for the product, to have Idle Champions on those platforms. And, you know, we have to make sure that anything that we do to reward players in a way similar to the chess codes that we do for Steam, works with that license agreement. It has to. It's a legal thing. So, yeah, that will not be quick, but like we will get there. Slim Jim Dog Lord. I'm newer to the game, but I see a lack of orc characters, or am I just not advancing far enough? We have one half-orc character that nobody likes to talk about. Desitronus. Where do Naeli and Barrowin come from? I can't seem to find a comic or wiki article or the such about where they're from, unlike just about every other character. So Barrowin Under was created for one of the board games, and it actually has an official reference on the D&D site. So I'm just gonna copy it. Heroes Barrowin Under. So I'm gonna post this in chat, and then 7 seconds from now, people will know why. And then Naeli Goldflower as well. Naeli Goldflower is on the cover of the Sword Coast Adventures Guide. I'm not sure if we have... Yeah, I mean, the Forgotten Realms wiki has something about her, but it's also our portrait. But yeah, she's on the cover of the Sword Coast Adventures Guide. So she is an official thing, but I honestly couldn't tell you beyond that where Naeli first came from. Oeric. Any plans for characters from Oeric or Athas? I can't talk about potential upcoming characters, but I also have no idea who. I don't know. As I mentioned earlier, I was a Dragonlance nerd, not a Forgotten Realms nerd. I mean, we're all the same kind of nerd, but basically I read a lot of Dragonlance novels and not a lot of Forgotten Realms novels, so my Forgotten Realms knowledge has massive gaps in it. Let's see. Scribble, can we have an event where we choose to give dice to DMs versus players? I like that. Certainly we already kind of do, in that the High Rollers one dice they don't use goes to Mark, but any chance of having champions that use multiple slots? Probably not, but that isn't impossible. Let's see, Cassius 335. Is there a way to see the patch number? The settings menu, I think. I think that's where it is. Yeah. Look at the bottom. 0.165. Let's see. Oh, wow. There's a bunch more questions. Okay. Sketch Monkey 007. Anyone feel we desperately need an Ashara buff now? We have a great Tiefling group, but Evelyn is just too good to bring in Ashara. That's an interesting bit of feedback. I will leave that to Chris, who will probably be the one handling the bulk of the champion balance update, and then working with Justin on it once he's got something related to it. But yeah, make a note. Fell and Tier. How do you choose who to swap out for someone? Because I love using Barrowin and Wolfgar and hate having to choose. Same with Binwin and Naeli. I mean, that's very much dependent on your formation, your gear, what kind of adventure you're doing. Binwin, once you have enough gear for him to at least attack, like guaranteed 3 times, hopefully 4+. Once he reaches that threshold, his damage gets so ridiculous that he just chews through bosses that have armored hit points, like just chews through them. So that's when I use Binwin. I've used him basically to kill dragons and like on a few variants. Most of the time I use Naeli because she's an amazing tank and an amazing buffer. Barrowin and Wolfgar. That's an interesting one to be stuck between picking. So Barrowin, and this is my personal opinion. My personal opinion is that she's overpowered and their 4 stacks are just, they're way too game impacting to stick around and they should be removed. But anyways, Barrowin allows you to do some pretty incredible stuff with a Strix DPS or a Jamila DPS if you don't have Strix, where you can just relatively easily get a massive number of stacks on them and blow past way more areas than you could otherwise. And Barrowin actually also really works well with Binwin because Binwin's attack timer gets longer the more attacks he has. So once he's guaranteed to attack 4+ times, he will also get 4 stacks from Barrowin every time he attacks, and it's insane. Anyways, to use Barrowin for those combinations, and Wolfgar is on his own a pretty good GPS, but in a lot of cases you might want to use Tyrell instead. Not to talk down about Wolfgar because he's a very well built, very awesome champion, but this slot, Barrowin and Wolfgar are such powerful buffers for your party that it's hard to justify using Wolfgar as DPS because he doesn't provide massive DPS buffs. He just has this kind of like momentum style damage cycle where like he can do amazing damage, but like if he isn't doing amazing damage, then he's less likely to do amazing damage because he kind of has a, I think Silisa described it as a feast or famine gameplay style, which is a very accurate way of putting it. So yeah, Tyrell or Barrowin, whichever one better buffs your DPS. Nile Sustenance. You've been talking about the tanking and healing update for 6 months or more, and it's still only at the pitch stage. No, it's more like we acknowledged that it needs to happen, and we said that it was coming in our development cycle. Like we were going to get to building it, and that probably was 6 months ago now when it was first mentioned. It's a massive update. Like as a project, like a balancing pass, you can look at spreadsheets, you can see how effective things are, you can get feedback from the community and be like, okay, you can kind of have a good idea of like where to nudge characters to make them better or possibly worse, but like how to streamline all your characters with math. But the tanking and healing update is a completely different type of creative energy. Like, yes, it has those mathematical aspects that I don't envy Justin having to come up with, but also you have to create some new systems for the game to operate within. Like, you know, you need to make tanking relevant and healing relevant and have the game still feel like the game it does now, but also incorporate those things in ways that feel like the gameplay is rewarding for players who really work on it. And it's huge. And we didn't have time to even look at working on it. We definitely mentioned it too early, but we didn't have time to even think about looking at it until Chris was here. And even then, it took a little bit of time to get Chris up to speed, and he was a very quick study. He was doing tons of work almost immediately, but it took a while to get to the point where he is taking enough off Justin's plate that Justin is freed up to work on this. And then our content release schedule, and then summer and vacations and people constantly being gone. Long story short, it's a very big update that took us a long time before we could even start on it. And so, yeah, we haven't shared any information on it because we can't. We're probably not going to say anything about it until it gets to a serious testing phase, just because, yeah, it's a big deal, and we don't want to talk about all this aspect that we're thinking about doing and then not get to it, or have it be something that we ultimately don't choose to do. So we'll be playing that one really close to our chest for probably quite a while. Holy Hacks Batman. New question for Time Gates. Is there any bonus to playing them after you've got the 2 chests? After you've got the chests, or presumably unlocked the champion and earned a couple chests, the bonus is earning more favor, because it's an exponential increase, right? So if you get that favor up to a decent number, and like obviously don't grind to your heart's content because it's just a fraction of event favor, but being able to increase your favor by a percentage amount that is significant is a big deal. So it's worthwhile to do for that. But personally, like, I get the chests and then I grind up to, maybe a 25% favor increase, and then I move on to something else. Let's see. Far Noogler. If you have a rare shiny and get the epic, does it stay shiny? Yes. Shinies. What shiny equipment cards do is they make that slot shiny, period. So everything will be shiny there, and the only way to change that would be to make it golden. Moose Changer Pat. Can we get a Dritz update sooner than the tanking healing update, or are they still planning on putting that off perpetually? I hate to harp on it, but the Companions of the Hall are my main reason for playing this game. The Dritz update is not part of the tanking and healing update. It's more of a balance pass thing, and like that's on us. How do I put this? We're a small company. People work their asses off. Many people, especially people like Justin, who so many aspects of the production of this game require a huge amount of his attention, and not just his attention, but attention to detail, and his creativity and his quite frankly, genius in regards to designing it, that we were stretched too thin to start, and we've only now more recently stabilized enough that we can give these projects their due. So they are much higher priority. They are being worked on, but beyond that, I can't really say. Let's see. Nomad84. Will this weekend's buff help me get through Azaka Part 2? I don't know. I have not looked at that buff yet, and the stream is running out, so I'm not going to get an opportunity to do that before the end. But Nomad84, if you're on Discord, I'll talk about a bit about this weekend's buff in a bit. Garwar, can we get a list of the Codename Entertainment created champions so we know which ones for sure are original? Maybe put CNE original in their affiliation in-game? Yeah. Anyways, it's Stokey, Krond, Zorbu, Narak, and crap, there's one more. Stokey, Krond, Zorbu, Narak. I forget who the fifth one is, but there's 5. Locknor. I heard the odds of unlocked heroes and time gates are not uniform. Is that true? I'm not sure what you mean by that. If there are champions you haven't unlocked, then odds are when a time gate comes up, one of the ones you haven't unlocked is going to show up. That's the only RNG, non-RNG, not quite RNG related element. Other than that, it's random. Anyways, it is 2:55, which means I need to start winding this stream down. So thank you all for being so patient with me. I know I fucked up a few of the questions, but luckily Justin is paying attention and in chat and has also been answering some of them. And then Erica does her best that she can to help me not make mistakes, but I still make them. It is really hot in this room right now because the AC system is off so that the audio doesn't go to hell. But like, it is warm in here. And this hat is hiding my sweat. So thank you for being patient with me. Thank you for coming back. Definitely tune in next week. You know, I mean, this was our show for Thursday, October 8th. But there's a couple things I want to go over first. First, this coming weekend is Canadian Thanksgiving. So Monday, October 8th, the office will be closed, which basically means that most of us won't be reachable. If a server explodes or something, somebody will come in and deal with it. But most likely, we will be a little bit more non-communicative, not around, etc. So yeah, office is closed on the 8th. Huge thanks to John, Greg, Bart, Pelham, Lynn, Satine, everybody at Wizards of the Coast who helps us out, gives us time on the D&D Twitch, talks about lets us talk about our 2 favorite topics of D&D and video games. Huge thanks to my co-producer Erica, who puts all this together with me, and to Aaron M. Evans for being a delightful guest and for joining us today to talk about Farida. We have Waffle Talk coming up next at 4, at least I believe it's certainly on the schedule. I haven't checked it in the last couple hours. And then Trapped in the Birdcage at 5, Critical Role at 7, if you've ever heard of that show. And yes, next week's Streamiversary, our 1 year, we'll be doing a lot more raffly fun goodness than we regularly do and giving away that super awesome D&D Beyond Legendary Bundle. So tune into that one for sure. Have a wonderful weekend, and thank you all for tuning in.